What's the word, everybody? It's your boy Traded Gray here, and welcome back to another episode of the Hunger for More podcast. And I have a special guest here with me today, and Sanyal. How you doing, bro?
What's up? How are you?
How you been holding up during this pandemic, man?
Man, that's a loaded question. You know, it's been, I'm grateful for being healthy. My family's healthy. You know, my friends are healthy. From a business side, it's been a whole different, it's just been upside down. As somebody that has a lot of exposure to real estate, the restaurant world, the music business, I think those are the three areas where you definitely don't want to be exposed to. So every day I feel like it's just war, figuring it out, getting your troops ready. I think the biggest thing is that we don't know what's going to come. Every day is different. So, yeah, I've been staying on my toes.
What I want to start off with is, when did you first get the entrepreneur bug?
Yeah. I know this is like something I know very well because for me, I grew up with a lot of financial insecurity in my house. See my dad, lose his job a lot and always that feeling of like, we don't know where it's going to come from. So I was probably 12 when I was like, I'm never working for somebody. Even if that didn't make any sense to me, I was just like, I'm not doing it. And that's when I found Volume 2 by Jay, just fell into hip hop music. And I looked at Jay as like the first person of color.
How many times you listen to that album? Because that's one of my favorites. Like, what's your favorite songs on that project?
Volume 2 I have on a CD. Like, I got a physical copy of that.
Yeah,
so how many times? I don't know, countless. Favorite song? Man, probably Coming of Age Part 2 is crazy.
I still like Part 1 better, but Part 2 is
cool.
Part
1's better, but Part 2, like the energy on Part 2, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, Bleak was going crazy on that one. But,
that's a tough album to pick a favorite, but
But the entrepreneur bug though, like when did you finally like, this is the lane I want to go through? Yeah,
I was selling lemonade. I was selling, I was always the kid who was doing random things, trying to flip sneakers, like early. I'm talking about before like anybody was on the sneakers.
I always wish I started real early. I was a ball player coming up, so it's not that I didn't have the entrepreneur bug. Like, I always knew I wanted to be in business, but basketball was my main focus, So until like I finally decided like this is not my lane anymore, then I had to figure out this entrepreneur thing at 21.
I mean, basketball is a hustle in its own way too, right? It's a business in its own way. For me, it was probably at 16. I launched like my own independent record label while I was still in high school. And that was the first time that we were doing things like, saving money to invest into equipment or into production, printing up shirts, flipping them in person out the trunk of, my 16, boy's car. Yeah.
At 16 starting the label, like what did your parents say about that?
They weren't happy about it. My parents coming from India, they have a very like unique way of seeing the world because of how they grew up, and when you're born in this country, you don't even know what they've been through. It's just the way it is. Like, you're like, nah, like, let me do this and let me do that. Let me eat mac and cheese and, do X, Y, Z. And they're like, nah, that's not what we know to be right. So, my parents were definitely confused and definitely like, you need to go to school, and I give my parents credit because they never got in the way of anything I was doing.
That's respectable.
I've been a crazy kid in the sense where like I was skateboarding, when I was like 10 years old. So you imagine parents coming from India, seeing their son is like out doing, like I was just that kid. I was like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to be respectful in the house. I'm going to honor our family values, but I'm not going to fall into the mold of what you expect from me just because that's what I'm supposed to do. So by the time in high school I was pushing the envelope, I'd be getting home at 2 a.m. from the studio, still waking up and going to class and doing my thing, but they didn't get it, and I think it took my parents a cool 10 years to really understand.
When the money started coming in?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
That's all immigrant parents. My parents come from Jamaica, so
you already know.
Until I start making the money that they believe that I should be making, then they'll be on my back. I mean, at this point, they just let me be now because they know nothing is going to stop me from doing what I want to do at this point, But, I know once the money comes in, that's when they'll be calm, But speaking of, like, your parents, like, what age did you come to America?
I was born here.
Oh, you was born here. Okay. Like, where was you born?
In Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So how you end up in New York?
I came to New York for school.
Oh.
So I came to New York. I went to NYU, which was like the only way I could get out of Massachusetts. I always knew I wanted to be in New York. You know, being a hip hop kid, like, you know that you got to be in New York. You know, and for me, that was my ticket to get to the city.
Okay. So in high school, running a label, like, was it like with your friends?
Yeah, it was like with my really close homies, and we worked together for 10 years.
Like, how far did you get in the music business, in your opinion?
Yeah, we took it there. You know, I think a couple highlights from my life, like when I was 22, I got invited to go tour out in Japan.
Oh,
wow. Yeah, okay. So like we took it there. I scored a Bollywood film in India with one of my mentors. Toured with Wiz Khalifa.
Oh, that's dope.
You know, had dinner with Nas. Like I've taken it. You know, but I think I realized being an artist, as much as I love to tell my story, wasn't my strength. My strength was in business. It was in knowing how to market the project, how to roll it out, how to use digital and social to leverage, you know, what we had built. I was running e-commerce shops when I was in college. We had our own e-commerce with merch. I was probably 20, 21 years old. I couldn't even get into the club. You know, like that's how long I've been doing this.
Did you get to graduate school?
I did.
College?
Yeah, barely.
Barely?
Because at that time I was...
I'm sure it was crazy, like running a label and
I was
trying
going
to do
on
school.
tour with Wiz on a Wednesday and coming back on a Monday.
Yes.
And trying to fake it through class. You know, it was really tough for me. And that's one thing I think I regret. I wish I had taken school a little bit more seriously. I just think that there's so much access when you're in college, professors, information, the library, all that. I just wasn't worried about that.
Would you ever go back?
No. Short answer is no. But I would go back and do a guest lecture. I'll definitely do like a Harvard Business. That program they have for CEOs. Stuff like that. The thing that Swiss did. I would do that kind of thing, but I'm not paying to go to school.
Now, I read up that, you know, things changed. Something happened during your time running your label that you had to step back. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, man. My life really, I feel like I lived so many lives. So when I was like in my early 20s, we were literally traveling the world with music, going to Japan, going to India, going to Barbados, all around the country, South by Southwest, you know, everything. I was really living and had built this thing, you know, with my own two hands. And but at the same time, I was fighting a kidney condition. So I was born with kidney failure, and I just knew that at some point it was going to catch up with me. I just didn't know when. And so at 24, you know, I had a regular doctor's appointment type of thing, and basically found out that my body was in end-stage kidney failure.
Wow.
So I had 3 months before, you know, my kidney shut down. And the kidney is the only organ that you actually need to, I think it's like the only organ that you can't live without in some way. Like, you need one full kidney. Like, you have half a heart, you can have portions of other organs, but you need a full kidney to live. And I was scheduled to go on tour in India like the week after this doctor's appointment.
Wow.
And my doctor was like, you need to fall back, you know, just stay at home, get medication, figure it out, like you're really sick. And I didn't feel it because I was moving with such purpose in my life that I never thought about.
So, like, you didn't feel anything? Like, was there things that was different about your body, like, during that time before you went to the doctor and found out you had that kidney issue?
The doctor at that time was like, how have you even been walking for the last year? Most people with your condition would be flat. And I was on tour 6 months ago. I was in Japan. You know, like, I just had, I really believe in, like, purpose being stronger than the physical state, you know, mental.
So you think that you probably felt it, but you just ignored it? You just thought it was...
I don't think I felt it. I think I was given a gift by God to be like, you stronger than your circumstances. And eventually I did feel it. So long story long, I went on tour. I was like, nah, doc, I can't do that. I'm going on tour. That was my first tour in India. And then on tour, I got really sick. So I was in these 5-star hotels, like I couldn't get out of bed type shit.
Oh, shit.
And, you know, I fought through it, and we came home, and like 2 weeks later, I went to the hospital, and I didn't get out of the hospital for months.
So like, what's going through your mind during that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a lot of negative thoughts because I had come so far. You know, you got this skinny Indian kid with no access to the music business, and I took it there. And then I felt like I got, the carpet pulled out of me. I feel like I got shut down, so there was a lot of like, I can't believe this is happening to me, a lot of fear because we didn't know what was going to happen, as a family. And at the same time, I think I was prepping myself for what if things never get back to normal again, because I had lived such a life that's what I was used to. And yeah, man, I was scared.
So speak about, because I read that your father actually gave you one of his kidneys. So like, speak about that situation.
Yeah, I mean, as immigrant families, you're always really close, to your parents, and you have a really strong bond. Obviously, that took it to a whole different level. Yeah, my pops is a superhero, man, for real. My mom is too, because she's been through a lot. But my pops is really a superhero. He was told by the doctors that he shouldn't do it because it was unsafe for him, and he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna take the chance."
That's his son.
Yeah, but looking back on it, it's a lot. It was heavy.
How long was recovery?
Believe it or not, man, recovery was harder than being sick.
I can bet, because mental, right?
Mentally and physically. Basically, one entire side of my body was just numb. I couldn't move it. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't walk. It was tough. Recovery took me about 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months. Like, you had to do a lot of like rehab and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
what was that process like?
Yeah, you gotta learn all your muscles again, and your body again, and you gotta take all this crazy medication because you got a foreign object in your body. Yeah, that's how they see it. But I think mentally at that time I was just so broken. I was just worn down. I was like, damn, I've been fighting this for 8-9 months, which when you're 24, 8-9 months is a long time. Now looking back on it, I got really lucky. I know people with my condition that didn't make it out, or that their lives changed forever. I live a very normal life today.
Like, do you think what's the what's the positive you seen that came out of that? 'Cause, at first you said you had negative thoughts.
Yeah.
So like, now when you reflect back on that situation, right? Like, what's the positive you can take from that situation now?
I mean, it changed the entire way I saw life, because I knew that, a month from now, at any given time, my life could be completely different.
Was that like a sense of urgency now? Like, once you got out,
I always had that.
Recovered?
Yeah, I always had that because I knew this thing was happening, but now it was different.
Yeah. So now you're recovered. So like, what's the next move from that moment?
I was 25. I had no money in my bank account. I had no job. I had no real career outside of like being a musician and a business person. So you can imagine that that's a stressful position to be in.
Hell yeah.
And it's been 7 years since that, and in that time, I've built 2 7-figure businesses. I own 7 figures worth of real estate. Like, 7 years is not a long time. So when I talk about sense of urgency, I really flipped the switch, and I think the switch that flipped for me too was like seeing what my parents sacrificed during that time for me to, be okay. I was like, okay.
So like, what was like the first move? Like, all right, you're 25.
Yeah.
You're recovered. Like, what you had your eye on first? Yeah,
the first move probably wasn't the right move, but I went back to music.
Okay.
Couldn't get away from it. I felt like I had more of the story to tell now. And so I went back to music, and I spent about 2 years trying to get that magic back, where I was before it. And we took it, we took it there. We had a premiere on MTV. We went to Rock Nation. We had a couple opportunities. Like, we took it there, but it wasn't the same. Yeah. The game had changed between when I was 23, 24. If we sold one album on iTunes, we would make like $6.87 from that sale, right? After I came out, people weren't buying music anymore, right? I said came out as if I did a bid, but after I got healthy, the game had changed, and technology and streaming and all that were playing a much bigger role. Yeah. And
because like, what year was that when you went back into the music?
2014.
Oh yeah. Things are different,
right?
Completely different now.
We came up in the era of blogs, Two Dope Boys, Not Right, getting our mixtape on there, going crazy, getting downloads, booking shows, and running a business that way. Yeah. 2014, 2015, the game's different.
So, like, do you think it became more difficult for you, or you just were starting to lose, like, there was something you was missing now?
Yeah, it's a good question. It definitely became more difficult. A lot of the relationships had changed, right? The people that you know at these places move on. The music that we were making wasn't relevant to the time necessarily. Like, we were making what we called, like updated boom bap. Like, it was like Tribe Called Quest meets, Lil Brother. Like, it was
that shit will work now that you see Benny and all them heads.
Right. But that era was very much like we were moving away from that. It was more street music, and we just didn't have the knowledge of what was relevant. So, long story short, I could feel that it was just harder to get traction. At the same time, I'm going through it with my business partners, with my label mates, with the people I work with, because I got this crazy sense of urgency, and I don't feel like they're taking it as seriously.
That's my life right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm like, damn, what do I do? And I still remember this one night, man. We were on tour with the artist that is actually pretty well known, but I'm not going to get into that because he was a nightmare. But we were on tour, and I was in Newark, New Jersey, in the middle of it was like November, and it had just started snowing. I had this 3 Series that was like always gave me problems. So I'm like, here we go. And I packed my whole teams in, it's tiny ass 3 Series. We driving around, and I was at the venue, and I think we were supposed to make like $75 from the show for like gas and whatever, And I wasn't even tripping, but I knew like my people needed it. Like, they needed to eat and put gas in the whip and go home that night. And the promoter was like stiffing me for $75. And I was like, I think I was 27, and I'm like, is this gonna be my life? Am I really gonna fight for $75 in the middle of Newark, New Jersey in the winter? And I had something flip for me where I was like, yo, you more than this. You could do more than this. And you're not using your talent and your skills the right way. So at that time, a switch flipped, and I started to move away from music and get more into what I had been doing the whole time, but I made it into I took it in a different direction, which was creative marketing, digital marketing, building brands.
So you felt like all the skills that you done built over doing the music thing, now it was transferring into another business. 100%. That you can do.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to like share with everybody is like, sometimes when you're going through something and you're learning a world that maybe doesn't work out for you, or maybe you got to really pivot and switch, don't forget the skills that you learned from that period, because those are still really valuable to inform your perspective. Right. So what happened is when I started, so my brother and I started a creative agency around that time, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we were going for it. And I was taking the same way that I was thinking in the music business and applying it to marketing and branding for early stage businesses. And that was in its own way radical, because people weren't thinking the way I was, because I had a complete different setup, like environment that I had been working in, but it really paid off. And that's one thing that I'm grateful for, is like, I never was like, my music business experience is useless. I was like, let me see how I can apply it to a new world.
So what was the first step when it comes to this marketing agency?
The first step was paying my mortgage. The first step was, my brother, he moves to New York, and we're on Craigslist, we're on job boards, just trying to find clients. Who needs what we do, right? We were doing, at that time it was like search marketing and paid social marketing and website development. It was just real basic stuff. Like, what can we do? I remember we got our first client. It was like $800 a month, and I was like, "Oh, it's lit! Like, we making money from our own, from this own little agency." And
was you guys doing like the creative and the marketing for it? Or
yeah, we were getting into a little bit of that, and basically one thing led to the next. Man, we just kept plugging, kept getting a little bit bigger clients, kept getting introduced to somebody.
If it's all right to name, or if you can't, is there any like brands that you can name that were your clients?
There's two of them that changed our lives really and gave us the credibility. The first one was a company called Juice Press, which is local in New York. Yeah. So one of my homies from the music game was actually working over there. What? And he was like, "Yo, I can make an intro to the CEO, but you got to kill the pitch. You got to do your thing."
Yo, that just like proves just like how much relationships matter. Yo, like
100%. Yeah, so that was a client, and then the second thing was we did Hillary Clinton's 2016 Asian American outreach.
Whoa, how did that happen?
Man, again, one of my homies from the music business was like, "Yo, I went to dinner with this dude. He runs a super PAC. He's in politics. I don't really know what to do with it, but I'm alley-oop it to you."
That's crazy.
And yeah, man, shout out to Ash, and to this day, I still joke about that with him, but. We took that and we bodied it, simply put, we bodied it. I remember I was in Germany for another client, so I had to spend like 4 days in Germany, and because I was working on this project, and they had put me in this crazy ass hotel that had like the Wi-Fi expired every 60 minutes. What? So you had to go down to the lobby and be like, "Yo, I need a new Wi-Fi code."
Damn.
And the whole time there, I'm working on all this stuff for Hillary Clinton, designing the assets, coming up with the copy, building out the campaign. Eventually, the video that we did went crazy viral, and we actually were able to provide a lot of value to this organization. But I still remember, man, I was in Germany with barely any Wi-Fi, at 4 a.m. because the times were all off, and I was just plugging, and I don't think I told that story before, but anyway, so yeah, I put that campaign together. Our whole team, stepped up. It was me, my brother. We had one or two more people, and then we made an impact, man.
So once that happens, right? What is business like at that moment for your for your marketing agency at that moment?
Yeah, I mean that I think was a game shifting time for us because these people from the Super PAC were like, "Hey, we love what you're doing, but we need to do more. We about to wire you $60,000 today. Can you guys handle it? To run ads and build things." And I'm over here $60,000. You go, what? I had never seen that type of money. And never knew that type of thing existed.
So $60,000. So
it wasn't all for us. It was for advertising. But what it did was it opened my mind as to what's possible when you know how to put culture, content, and creative together. And that's what we started doing as an agency.
Because you said you built this is this a 7-figure business also now? Is it just mainly just off of that you guys are making your revenue from?
Well, we had a lot of different iterations of this business. So, what happened was the entire market changed after the election, right? Because Facebook starts restricting its algorithm and the way that brands and people are advertising on it completely changed. So we realized that, look, if you're running ads for somebody, that doesn't make you unique in any way. Anybody could do that. Anybody can learn how to run the ads and figure out what works on that platform. What was unique for us was our ability to know what's happening in culture and create campaigns that really spoke.
Do you think that's a struggle that a lot of brands are having?
100%. And they have it because they don't come from the culture and they don't take their time to learn the culture.
So that's the main advantage then basically for a marketing agency is to understand culture. Yeah, that's dope, man.
Yeah, that's my tagline is your culture is your advantage. Whatever your culture is, whether you Jamaican culture, whether it's Asian culture, whether it's African culture, wherever you come from, finding the unique perspective that is baked into your DNA and how you grew up and what you know, you take that to the business world, there's a lot of opportunities to sell that to people who don't understand it, but want to have access to the people that you have access to, you know?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So when does real estate come into play in this whole situation?
Man, I haven't slept all quarantine because of real estate, so I'm like in PTSD mode right now. So, you know, post my surgery, you know, I'm realizing that my parents, you know, they did so much for me. I'm like, yo, how can I pay it back? Probably never, because I don't got a kidney to give back. But, you know, how can I pay my parents back for what they did? And I came up with this crazy left field idea. I was like, yo, what if I earn enough money to retire them in, you know, 3 or 5 years and just make sure that they're good and they don't got to worry about, you know, bread. And I was like, how do you do that? How do you earn money passively to be able to build something that can give back to your family or the next generation? And, you know, I racked my brain and I ended up on real estate. And to me, real estate is a really unique asset class because it allows you to put down a portion of money to own an entire asset. So when you buy real estate, you put down 20% or 15 or 25% to own 100% of the asset, to own 100% of the income from that asset.
Okay.
Right? So what I mean is, like, if I buy a home with 20% down and I start collecting rents on that building, I collect 100% of the rents, right? Even though the bank still has a mortgage on that, I don't got to pay the bank the rents that come. You know, I'm free to do that. I'm free to do with that what I want. If I go buy a stock today, I can't buy 20% of Tesla and say, hey, let me get 100% of the dividends or let me get 100% of the run-up. It doesn't work like that. So real estate was a really unique asset class that allowed me to leverage the cash that I had and also create short-term income in terms of rents and that cash flow and create long-term appreciation where my buildings are becoming more valuable over time. And I couldn't find any other wealth engine that did those two things. And that's how I really got into it.
Like, because when a lot of people that I know, when we think about real estate, and, you know, we all want to get into it, but we just, like, I guess the knowledge of, like, knowing what to do, you know what I'm saying? Like, even you saying, like, yo, you got to have 20% and then you can get the rest, you know what I'm saying? So that's really dope. So, like, what was your next move, like your first, like, thing that you invested in first?
Yeah, which I don't recommend people doing, but I bought a condo first. And I bought a condo for myself to live in. But what that allowed me to do was, like, go through the process. So it was a bad investment, but it was a really good education.
What made it a bad investment to you, though?
When you buy a condo or you buy your own residence, you don't make any money off of that.
Oh, yeah, because you live in it.
And you got to pay money to live in it, right? Versus when you buy a multifamily home, you could even live in one of those units and have your tenants pay the rest of that money. So technically, they're paying your mortgage for you to live in that home for free. But when you buy your own condo, you buy your own house, that mortgage is a liability. The house is the asset, but the mortgage is a liability. Yeah. Right? So if I had to do it again, I would have just bought
a smart way to put
it.
The mortgage is the liability, not the house.
Correct.
Yeah, that's dope.
Now, you know, I made a really good play with the condo I bought. It ended up going up crazy in value, and it's almost doubled in the time I bought it. So, like, that's really big. Was it in
New York?
It's in Jersey City.
Yeah. Are you invested in, like, in the city also? Or?
I have all my investments are in Jersey City, in Newark, and in Philadelphia. Okay. So I invest in secondary markets.
I know the real estate market here is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, living in New York is ridiculous, bro.
Yeah.
Like, the cost to live here is... This is for rich people. It feels like, you know, like...
It is. And what happened with New York is New York real estate became so valuable because it was a hedge against the rest of the market. Yeah. And what that means is, like, it don't matter if the market is tanking or there's massive global unrest. New York real estate is going to be stable. Even if it returns lower than average in terms of, like, the ROI on it. Yeah. It's still stable. So when you have people, multimillionaires, who want to park their money in a stable asset class, they all came to New York, which drove everybody else out. So for me, I was like, I don't want to compete in a market like New York because, A, I don't got the funds to compete, and B, the returns aren't even like that. Versus you go down 2 hours, you go down to Philly, there's money to be made.
You can play.
And more importantly, there's a blank canvas for you to do what you want. You know, in New York, I gotta play into neighborhoods and areas that are already shaped, right? Brooklyn, you know what you're gonna get in all these different neighborhoods. In Philadelphia, my partners and I are actually buying up multiple assets and buildings in one neighborhood and transforming the entire area by introducing.
So, like, are you guys buying, like, the land also?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we buying land, we buying buildings, we're turning them into community spaces, art galleries, running education programs, neighborhood cleanups, and really taking a holistic approach to that space and being able to create it into something that we feel like is going to benefit the community instead of just coming in and, you know, having to play by the set of rules that that city has already created.
So, like, you said your first investment was in the condo. So, like, what was, like, your first real investment, like, now that you learned and made that mistake, that was, like, either profitable or still is, like, you know, bringing in cash flow today?
Yeah, I bought a multifamily home, like, 10 minutes away from where I was living.
If you don't mind me asking, like, how much? Like, I want the
listeners, let's go through the math.
Yeah, how much did you put in to get this done?
Yeah, so the first deal I ever did was a rehab project. So I bought a building that was, to me, it was located 1 block from the train. It was located near a bunch of new coffee shops and stuff. So it had a ton of potential in terms of the neighborhood that I was investing in. It just wasn't popular yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, cool, let's get it. There's value, right?
Yeah.
So I bought a 2-family building for $190,000. And I did the math with my contractor and realized that it would take me $70,000 to renovate the whole thing. New electricity, new plumbing, new drywall, new floors, everything.
And
got the entire building.
As you're doing this, you still have your marketing company, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing that was happening on marketing is that we were generating a ton of cash, and I just had a ton of cash sitting in an account, and I was like, that's not a good way to invest, right? So back to the example. So I bought a 2-family building for $190,000. I put down 20% on a mortgage. I put in $70,000 of my own money to renovate it because I didn't have the experience to go get a bank or a construction lender or borrow it from my uncle because I don't have, you know, that person in my life. So I was like, I got to put this up myself. So 190 plus 70, I was all in for 260. And the value of the home after I had done all the renovations, I had calculated it based on what the other properties in the neighborhood were coming in at. And so when the bank came to inspect it, I knew I was going to get a certain range, right? And I ended up getting $340,000.
Dope.
So 260, 340, there was an automatic spread, right, in terms of how much value I created. Instead of selling that house, which I could have done and made, you know, whatever, about $80,000, I decided to refinance that house, which means I got a mortgage on the new amount of $340,000, and I paid off my old mortgage of $190,000.
Smart.
But I still had $35,000 left over, and that money the bank gives you in a check.
Wow.
So I remember looking at a check for $105,000 because I had spent. So I had to pay myself back for the $70,000 that I had spent, and I still had $35,000. And I was like, oh, I understand how to make money in real estate now. I took that $35,000 and I went and bought another house, and then kept doing that. And today, my portfolio is like about 30 units, 30 doors. Yeah.
Hold on, is that 7 figures also now?
The market value.
The value of it.
Yeah, the market value is well up there. Yeah.
Man, that's dope. So then, what's been like? How I know there's been a lot of mistakes. So, how much have you lost?
Yeah.
Invested in real estate.
So I haven't lost any money in real estate. I've been very disciplined because I don't flip. You know, I don't do anything speculative.
That would have been my type of shit. I would have been flipping everything.
That's where you get hemmed up because you just never know what to expect with the market and buyers and sellers. What I do is I invest in long-term multifamily residential housing, which is always going to be around. Even if we're in a recession, which we're in now, you know, I got tenants who are not paying rent on time, but the asset that I own is still valuable. You know, I just bought a multifamily for $275K, and I fixed it up. And the bank came and I got it appraised for $410,000. So I created, you know, whatever, $100,000+ of value, $150,000 of value just in this rehab process. So I don't need to flip. I like to hold and build that wealth and build that portfolio over time.
Yeah, because like there's a lot of patience that come into it, and you got the long-term vision for it, so you don't mind just letting it grow over time, right?
On the flip side, I don't have a lot of cash coming in from real estate because all I have is my rents, right? Versus if you flip, if I had done a flip on some of these properties, you know, I probably would have been up 200, 300,000 in cash, right, before taxes. So that's a very different approach. So you could either be like, yo, I want to make those 200 bands and I'm gonna do something with that, or you can say I'm cool with making 15 grand a year from my tenants in profit, but I'm growing the value of my properties.
So like, if somebody that really wanted to get into real estate, right? Like, how much you think do somebody really needs to get into the real estate business?
Yeah, I think if you want to buy smart multifamily housing in a secondary market, you should probably have between 30 to 50,000 in cash, liquid.
Okay.
And look, you can go buy a bando in Philly for 10,000 and fix it up. No one's gonna buy it though, right? There's no one on the other side of that transaction because you're buying a home in an area that's just not coveted or that's not in demand. So the actual act of buying real estate it's not always about how much bread you need, but it's about what type of play are you making. You know, but if you want to do, just from my experience, every deal I do, I got to bring at least 30 to 50 to the bank, to the table.
Okay, so then you get into the restaurant. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So anything I speak on the restaurant is in conjunction with my brother, who's the head chef. He's the person that brought that vision to life. I handle the business, the marketing, the brand. You know, that's my world. But
yeah, I see you pushing heavy on Instagram with that.
When it comes to anything with, you know, restaurants, I can't speak on it without my brother.
But since you said the business side, like, 'cause that would make me interested. Also, is like, what was the process of like getting the space?
Yeah.
And like, how much did it cost? Like, I really want to know those type of things.
Yeah, so the restaurant came from, my brother and I are working in the agency world, right? And every day we're doing work for clients and we're seeing how these things are trending and moving. And we're giving clients advice like, yo, you should do X, Y, and Z. You should invest in culture and community and in people. And they're not doing it. They're listening, but they're not doing it. And we're like, instead of giving the advice and the game away, why don't we just apply it to something that we own? And so that the restaurant was incubated within the agency. And we came up with the idea and the brand and the whole message based on the work that we were already doing. And so we signed a lease in March of 2019. We built the space out for 6 months. So between March and September, we had to build the entire space out. And we launched September 18th, 2019 to a line of 750 plus people in the East Village. So it was like a dream, you know, come true. In terms of the math, man, I mean, you know, commercial real estate in New York is not cheap. What we tried to do is always make sure that our rent plus the cost of goods or COGS plus salaries was nowhere more than 45 to 50% of our revenue.
Because, like, is it like the same way? Like, did you guys approach it like the real estate way of, hold on, excuse me.
No, you're good.
Did you guys approach it like the real estate way of like, you got to have a certain amount? Is it the same way of like trying to get it? Could you guys own the land or you guys are renting?
So we're renting the space. What we did was we built out what the total project was going to cost, meaning like how much was it going to cost to secure a lease? How much would it cost to build the place out? And how much would it cost to have 3 months of supplies and labor? And then what we did after that was we went and raised the money.
Oh, okay.
So this was my first time raising money.
Was it like outside investors or did you guys do like crowdfunding?
Yeah, it was outside investors. Okay, so what we did was we put up about 30% of the 40% of the money ourselves, just so that people knew that we were serious and we, you know, were willing to put our own money up. And I think that's the biggest difference between me and a lot of people that you come across on the internet or just that are entrepreneurs. A lot of these people don't put their own money up. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a rule where it's like other people's money. But the thing about the way I've done it is I always put my own money into the game.
Like why? Like I like that concept of like putting up your own bread. You know what I'm saying? Like I love that concept. But I remember like in like a lot of old business books, they always talk about using other people's money, like Rich Dad Poor Dad talk about that a lot. Yeah. But like what makes you want to like use your money instead of others?
It's really hard to own something if you're using other people's money. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the era of Rockefeller and Hov and Dame, and they put their own money up until they got to a point where they could partner with people that could elevate.
You feel like you have more control now,
Well,
right?
you do have more control, and you do have more ownership. So for me, those two things are always more important than making the cash. And, my friend Julian who came on here and spoke about the same thing is if you don't own the asset, your ability to monetize that asset over time is diminished, right? So if I had, let's just say, for example, if for the restaurant, say we raised money on an equity basis and I gave away 40-50% of that equity, 5 years from now when a VC comes by and says, hey, we want to invest $2 million into this company because we believe that, you guys have e-commerce, you have retail, you have culture, content, that $2 million, I got to now split with my investors. And they didn't even do none of the work to get me to that point, right? I did that off of our own ingenuity and our creative process. So to me, I'm willing to take a risk and bet on myself, my own abilities, and put my own money up.
That's right. And
use other people's money where I need to. Now, I want to clarify, a lot of real estate deals I do are with other people's money. It's my sweat equity and it's other people's money. But I've done my own deals for 5 years now where I got money in the game, so I feel comfortable taking that on. And in those deals, I do give up equity, right? But real estate and building businesses are two different things. But yeah, ain't nothing wrong with OPM. I prefer to own what I do.
So COVID hits. What's business like at that? What's business like at that moment?
So I manage an artist, a really talented guy named Anik Khan. And
what's his name?
Anik Khan. For the last 12 months, all of 2019, we spent planning for 2020. So we recorded music, we signed certain deals, hired certain people, built a team, felt really good about 2020. We drop a single in February, we go on tour. The first 2 months of 2020 are like a dream to me. Everything is going the right way. We on tour with an artist named Sanyal. It's at the end of Feb. So our last show was in Atlanta on like the 27th or 28th of February. I went to Miami for 2 days after to just chill out. And then I got back to New York like March 3rd. Yeah. My life is going exactly how we planned. Like we about to put this new single out. A couple of my real estate deals went really well. I was like, all right, let's go. 2 days later,
shit get different, bro.
Shut down. So how has COVID been is a very difficult thing for me to think about because it turned my entire life upside down. When they said the restaurants had to close on March 15th, I was like, what? We had only been in business for 6 months.
Exactly.
So it's not like we had even, been around long. And it was the winter, which is always slow. Yep. So I was like, how are we going to do this? And every day since March has been putting them gloves on, and going to war. It seems
like it's been, like COVID has now shown that branding matters a lot now.
I love that you said that.
Because I see like you're creating more content for your restaurant. And you guys are creating different types of like content and engaging fans and supporters of the business. You guys are taking pictures of people outside eating. So speak about that. Like, what has that strategy been building the branding side? Like because the sales, I'm sure sales slowed down, but like, what has that been like building the brand of it?
Yeah. So my 2 cents for anybody starting any type of business, any small business, particularly in the restaurant space, invest in brand. that is your differentiator when it comes to everybody else in the market. And invest in technology as a second piece. When we built the restaurant, back when we raised money, we had to raise a little bit more than we wanted because our branding just was like really expensive. And I'm not going to say the number out of respect for everybody involved, but it was way more than most restaurants. But that's how much we believed in, hey, if we built this brand right, that's going to be our moat, right? That's going to be how we differentiate ourselves from everybody else. When COVID hit and that thing fell through, right? We had spent so much time investing in brand and community. I was like, all right, let's see what happens now. And bro, I kid you not, man, in those last 2 weeks of March, our community stepped up and bought so many gift cards that our rent was going to be paid for April and May regardless.
Fire.
Because they had been like so invested in the brand, and they had really, and we had invested back into the community, right? We do a lot of things with local artists. We do a lot of things with culture in a smart way. Like we tell stories, like, it's a two-way street.
Like,
but
I know like the stresses of like running a restaurant and having a physical location, but like speak a little bit about like how like dope it is to have like a physical space and have a way to like connect with people like in a physical level. Like speak about that a little bit.
I love that question, man, because you're spot on, and that's why we did it. I mean, imagine growing up, right? I grew up as a brown kid. There's nowhere to go that reflects the values of how we came up. We're not always just chicken tikka masala and whatever you see at the Indian spot.
Yep.
We're a reflection of all the things that we grew up with in this country.
Especially our generation, for sure.
Yeah, and nobody has created a space that reflects that in an authentic way. And so to answer your question, if it's probably one of the best feelings I've had in the last couple of years.
It looks like
life.
You guys are having fun. When I see it on Instagram and just see you guys like interacting with like the customers and stuff, it just looked like you guys are having fun.
Imagine being able to build a space where you get to do what you want, play the music that you want, have the meet and greets that you want, serve the food you want. That's that connection, that human connection, that space goes a long way. So yeah, man, it's been a transformative experience for everybody on my team.
So like since we've been open back up, like how has the restaurant been running now?
Yeah, so we did something in April that changed the entire business, which was we pivoted a lot to e-commerce. So we created an entire new revenue channel by selling the chai that we sell in the store. We ended up packaging it and selling it to people. So when we look at that revenue channel being a completely new channel and along with the physical retail, our business is actually up pre-COVID. Okay. Which I don't tell a lot of people because they're gonna think like, I'm doing well. It's not doing well. I still gotta pay investors and I still gotta pay debt. But our business has thrived through this time because of our ability to adapt.
So your personal brand, there's a few more questions that we can get out of here.
No, we're good.
Like with your personal brand, like what's your goal with that right now? Like what's been going on with your personal brand? Because, personal brand now is important for everybody I see now. Even I'm now starting to realize like, oh, this content that I have, like as much like it's not as big right now, but me owning it and just continuing to put out more content, I'm really building real estate for myself when it comes to the content part, right? 100%. So what has that been like for you when it comes to the personal brand? Like, what's your opinion about personal brands at this moment now?
Yeah, great question. I think personal brands are gonna redefine how people engage with companies in the future. Meaning, if you have a strong personal brand and you own companies, you build an ecosystem that's really powerful. People start to know that, hey, this guy's credible. Therefore, the other things that he does, the other businesses that he's involved in, they have to be credible as well. I trust this guy, therefore I trust these other things. I'm open to it. And that's what I've done. I instead of focusing on building a personal brand where I could do influencer content and get paid from brands, I built a personal brand so I could direct people to the other brands that I own and create revenue.
It's funny
for those.
that you say that, right? Because I interviewed Zach Greenberg, senior editor of Forbes, and he has a book called A-List Angels. And he was basically talking about like how like Dan Marino and Ashton Kutcher, they're using their influence, their personal brand to get into the doors of these big companies in Silicon Valley, you know, using that as leverage. Like even like a nobody that is in business with Dan Marino, when that person brings up Dan Marino's name in a meeting, they're more than likely want to do the meeting because Dan Marino has built that brand. Yeah. So it just showed me just like how important a personal brand is. Or even like when you see Gary Vee, I'm sure, you know, he's great at what he's doing, but that personal brand now makes him so popular that he can get into rooms and other places that he probably would have never been able to if he didn't have that name, you know? So
100%. Yeah. And I think they are something that you have to really treasure and make sure that you do right by, you know, when your personal brand. So my own goal is just to be an educator and to be somebody that is an example of what happens when you do it your own way, when you take the risks, when you bet on yourself, and also show people exactly how you do it. You know, I remember some kid like DM'd me like 2-3 years ago. I still think about this. He was like, "You giving us a front row seat to entrepreneurship and building a business." And I was like, that's dope. You know, like that meant a lot to me because that's exactly what I want to do. You know,
like, and what you feel about like your opinion, how do you build a personal brand in your opinion? Because, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, they're writing a lot of motivating stuff and they haven't really did anything, you know. Like I know for me personally, like if I'm not talking about flipping, which is what I know how to do that, and just I know how to turn 50 cents, get me a mug and flip it for $85 on eBay. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my game before, you know. But like now I'm into these new things, and once I dominate podcasting, then I can talk about that. So like, what's your opinion? Like, should you? Because basically you're documenting your process of building stuff, right? So there's basically 2 ways to build a personal brand in your opinion, correct?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways, but yeah, there's one way that I think is the way to do it.
And like, speak about that. Like, what you think is your way?
I think the key is you have to show and not tell. You know, you got to be really humble in your approach and just do work. Your work shouldn't be focused on building your personal brand. The work should be focused on whatever business you're running.
And you're documenting it.
Right. And through documenting that, you're going to show people like this stuff is really going down. You know, so like I didn't work with Hillary Clinton because I was an influencer. You know, I probably had like 3,000 followers at that time. I worked with Hillary Clinton because I was nice at what I do. And as a result, I was able to build cachet off that, right? So, you know, I don't do real estate so I could sell real estate seminars to people, you know, for $150. I do real estate because I want to build wealth for my family. So I think when you have an authentic approach to what you're doing and you're really building a business, that's what's going to create a stronger personal brand. I think the second thing is you got to have a really unique perspective on it, because the hustle culture and hustle porn and all that's played out. You know, like, you know, sleep when I die, all that whole thing is played out. You know, and now it's really about like, what are you doing for your community? Like, you making money, that's great, but what are you doing for the people around you to help?
What do you represent?
Yeah, what do you stand for? You know, what are your values? And if you getting money, that's great, but what are the people around you? Are they getting money too? Are you teaching other people how to get money? You know, I think those things are essential to me. You know, like I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing is an authentic reflection of my life and teach other people how to get it. You know, and I personally, if I had been more on the personal brand Instagram thing like 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, I probably would have been way up there in terms of like, you know, a person online. I was focused on building my business.
As you should.
You know, and I don't know if that's something I regret or not, but I had a different approach to it.
I don't know, but I know I appreciate you guys, like you, John, Julian, like when you guys are just, especially you and John, when you guys are showing the process of you guys trying to build these things and making your mistakes, I know it inspires me to just know, like, yo, this shit is real, you know what I'm saying? Instead of, like, the other way, I'll just say, you know. But my last question is, like, what's your plan for the rest of this year? We got, like, 5 months left.
Yeah. The crazy thing is we still got a lot of time this year. Yeah. You know, and I think my plan for the rest of this year is a couple of things. I want to find a little bit of peace of mind for myself, you know, in the things I do, and
you seem like you're a real busy person, bro.
Yeah,
like, we've been trying to do this for like 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
so.
2 weeks is good for me too. Usually I'm like, yo, it's 2 months. I want to find a little bit of peace of mind. I want to stabilize the businesses that I have that are all over the place right now. Real estate, music, restaurant. I really want to find an expectation of what these next 12 months are going to be like. And that way I can build around that.
Right.
And I want to create more content around the things that I'm doing, you know, because I'm so used to, you know, having a videographer and we just go out and document what I do every day. Now it's not like that. You know, now I'm in the house more or I'm alone more, and I just got to find a cadence for creating my own content. So that's where I'm focused on this year. And surviving, man.
Survival is the #1 objective of my life, you know, so definitely I'm glad you said that, survival, people. You know, but where could people find you?
Yeah, I'm easy to find. It's Ani Hustles across everything. ANIHUSTLES, Twitter, Instagram, all that.
I appreciate you coming,
Thank
man.
you, Trey.
I truly do appreciate it, man.
Likewise.
I truly do. Like, I respect what you're doing. I wish you the best of luck with everything you got going on, guys. We signing out. Follow me on Instagram at TradedGray_, on Twitter at I am TradedGray, and follow my YouTube page at TradedGray so you can get the video interview. So peace out, guys.